We want to introduce shutting of the Ukrainian sky because our people are dying. If you cannot shut the sky now, then now give us the timeline. When will you do it? If you now cannot provide the timeline, tell us how many people have to die, how many limbs have to fly away from people's bodies. So you hear us.
All right. The president of Ukraine, Zelenskyy, making it very, very clear that if he had his druthers, he would ask for air support right now to police the airspace over Ukraine. That does not appear to be the case right now. The defense secretary has said that. The president of the United States has said that. Even some prominent leaders across Europe have said that. But that might be the last gasp hope for Ukrainians hoping to turn the tide in a battle that has Russian troops steadily advancing in key areas with control of much of the southern part of the country and at least 2 port cities. To John Kirby right now, the Pentagon press secretary. John, good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Neil.
What do you make then of that? The President, Zelenskyy making it clear we need air support. We need to police these skies.
Yeah. Well, look, first of all, we commend his bravery and his courage, his leadership in this terrible time of war in his country. I mean, he has stayed on the ground. He has stayed in command of his forces. And these are forces that are bravely and courageously fighting back. President Biden has made it clear that U.S. troops are not going to fight in Ukraine, and that includes in the skies. And I think there's no way to do that. There's no way to conduct a no-fly zone without actually putting U.S. pilots in confrontation with Russia. And I think we can all understand that escalating the conflict to that degree with U.S. pilots and Russian pilots in the air in combat only escalates the war itself, only makes it more dangerous, only makes it more treacherous for the Ukrainian people. So the president is very wise here. This is something we need to be very careful about, not escalating this conflict more than it already is. And again, he's been very clear that U.S. troops are not going to be fighting in Ukraine. That said, Neil, we continue, even today, to provide additional security assistance, lethal and non-lethal assistance to the Ukrainians so that they can continue to defend their country. And they're doing it quite creatively. They're doing it actually quite effectively.
You know, Vladimir Putin kind of upped the ante on what would be a necessary response down to weapons and supplies that somehow led to the death of Russian soldiers, that would warrant a response on the countries using it. At least that's how I interpreted his remarks and the foreign minister when he was referring to that. What did you think of that?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear the Russians react that way, but we have been nothing but transparent from before this invasion started, that we were going to continue to look for ways for Ukraine to better defend itself. And it's not just the United States, Neil. It's countries around the world, not just even in Europe, that are looking for ways to help Ukraine defend itself better and more effectively. And that's going to continue for as long as we can do it, because they are very much in a fight for their country. So, again, we've seen the Russian rhetoric. We've made it clear we're going to continue to do that. We've also made it clear that we're going to continue to look for ways to bolster NATO's alliance and NATO's defensive capabilities, particularly on that eastern flank. You've seen us devote thousands more soldiers from the United States to Europe. We're going to continue to look for ways to do that as well, to make it clear to Mr. Putin how seriously we take our collective security requirements under the NATO alliance.
Still, you talk about providing military aid and giving them the resources, that is, the Ukrainian people, to fight the fight. But the latest news is that at least 4 amphibious assault ships landed troops near Odessa, so very close to taking that crucial seaport, on top of Russian Marines taking Berdyansk, again, another crucial seaport. It seems very clear, John, that the Russians are trying to not only shut down and close off these port cities, but make them inaccessible to Western aid.
Well, I haven't. I can't corroborate the reports about Odessa. We did see them conduct an amphibious assault just a few days ago, like you said, just a little bit to the southeast of Mariupol, and they are moving on that city right now. What we see, Neil, here is an attempt on multiple lines of access by the Russians to seize major population centers. Obviously, Kyiv, the capital city, being the main one that they're after, but they're going after these population centers so that they can again assume more control over Ukrainian territory, Ukrainian sovereignty, the Ukrainian economy.
You talk about the economy, and is there some surprise at the Pentagon, to the White House even, that Vladimir Putin certainly today did not look like a man cowed by any of these sanctions and others that, again, still have to go into effect. It's still in the early stages here. But he's not giving back an inch. And even with so many of his oligarch friends having yachts taken and forced to sell soccer teams to find money that otherwise has been confiscated or frozen, are you surprised?
I don't know about surprise, Neil. I mean, he's been very clear about what his objectives were from even before he launched this invasion. But he hasn't, as you rightly pointed out, he hasn't really felt the full sting of these economic measures. And he will eventually. And it'll become that much harder for him to run a military machine in an expeditionary basis the way he's doing now in a war in a neighboring state. That will be harder for him to do as these sanctions begin to take effect. They are already having, as you rightly noted in a segment before mine, the impact that it's having on his economy. He's feeling that. He's going to continue to feel those consequences. And it's not, again, just the United States levying these sanctions. It's coming from around the world.
Now, I know we're not policing the skies over Ukraine, John. Are we policing the skies around Ukraine?
We already have had for a number of years a Baltic air policing mission under NATO's umbrella in those Baltic states, and that continues, and the United States continues to add aircraft to that mission. We are also, of course, flying other aircraft in other NATO airspace as well, including on the southeastern flank of the alliance. One of the things that the president announced when he announced additional troops going over was additional aircraft as well. So we are absolutely going to be making sure, again, back to that Article 5 commitment, if you're an attack on one is an attack on all, we're going to defend every inch of NATO territory, as President Biden said. That means being able to police the skies as well, and we're doing that. And it's not, again, just us. So many other NATO allies are stepping up with aircraft of their own.
So, John, how close do those aircraft get to Ukrainian airspace?
I don't want to get into rules of engagement or exact flight routes. All I'll tell you is that we're going to continue to look for ways to protect that airspace, to protect our NATO allies. So are the allies as well, of course. And as we've noted, we have communication channels open with the Russians to make sure that we can deconflict, so that there aren't. We can reduce the miscalculation chances in those skies over NATO territory. We want to make sure that there's a way of communicating with the Russians, so we can avoid any kind of mishaps and misunderstandings.
So you are communicating, Pentagon are communicating, NATO that's with the Russians. At what level?
It's really being done out of the European Command. They're in Germany. It's not something that we're picking up the phone here in the Pentagon and doing, but we have communication vehicles available to us to talk to the Russians.
Do the Russians
because now
share then what they're doing and where they're going, John?
This just got stood up, Neil, so there hasn't been a whole lot of communication. And right now, the skies over Ukraine are contested. And this is an important point. The Ukrainians are able to help defend their skies. They're doing it every day, not only with aircraft, but with sophisticated surface-to-air missile systems and other systems as well. The Russians have not achieved air superiority. But because that airspace is contested, because the Russians are now flying in combat missions in that airspace, we believe it's important that we have a vehicle of communication to deconflict in terms of NATO airspace. That mechanism is in place. We haven't used it aggressively yet, haven't had a need to, but it's nice to know that it's there, that there's a way to deconflict if we need to.
John Kirby, thank you very much. Good seeing you again. Busy times,
you too, Neil.
Scary times. The press spokesman for the United States Pentagon, John Kirby.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.